Welcome back to World Crisis Radio here from New York City. I'm about to address the Left Forum on Saturday, the 31st of May. Some of the themes: the end of history is over. History may have been stalled. It really wasn't, but might have seemed that way to some. History is still alive and well. The end of history was a mirage or a demagogic chimera launched by neocons. The ruling class is nuts in the Anglo-American world because they have built their careers on this. This is their approach, right? They think they're the masters of human destiny. But there's the majority of the world out there, Russia, China, India, and Brazil, and many more, South Africa, who don't share this lunatic view. So the Fukuyama thesis is a dead duck. The Daniel Bell end of ideology thesis is a dead duck. And, of course, the Jessica Matthews power shift nonsense of the late 90s. And what we need now is the new toughness of mind. In other words, it's simply too late in the game. The stakes are too high to have people who go around, they treat politics as where they can where they can experience the subjective satisfactions that they're looking for, and some of them want to be duped. Right? A lot of people who supported Obama were telling that they knew that they were being duped, and that this is what they wanted. They'd rather be duped and go along with Obama than sit on the sidelines. As I was trying to say before, in the 1848 revolutions, every government in continental Europe was overthrown, right? Starting with King Louis Philippe of France, Metternich of Austria, the Pope, everybody, all of them were overthrown. Not the British and not Russia, but everything in between overthrown. What came out of that was what historians have referred to as the new toughness of mind. That romantic blather, utopian slogans, and so forth are not enough, and indeed actually can be extremely damaging to society. A new toughness of mind that was summed up as realpolitik. Now, the person who's associated with this, I mean, you can associate it with quite a few, but Bismarck of Germany, Otto von Bismarck, the Chancellor of Prussia and then of the German Empire. Let me hasten to point out, unless you've really looked at it, you don't know who this is, because the Anglo-American propaganda, because of the world wars and so forth, there's an overlay, there's a thick layer of slanders and so forth about this guy. But think about it, to be the architect of one of the great unified nations of the modern world, and to be a protectionist and dirigist in economics, right? Because remember, the American system of Hamilton and Carey is the same as the German system of Friedrich List. And Friedrich List is actually on both sides of the Atlantic. But Bismarck is associated with some of these ideas. Bismarck, by the way, just to get an idea, some of his ideas are they're quite pervasive. In other words, he influences you more than you know, most likely. For example, if you've ever listened to cable television Sunday morning, or broadcast Sunday morning journalism, you will have heard that politics is the art of the possible. Well, politics is the art of the possible. That's Bismarck. That's the guy who said it. And he was also devoted to war avoidance. One of his good sayings is, preventive war is like committing suicide for fear of death. The neocons should put that in their pipes and smoke it. Preventive war is like committing suicide for fear of death. Otto von Bismarck. And the other one is, he was uncanny in his vision of what the First World War would look like. And he says this in 1878. Europe today is a powder keg, and the leaders are like men smoking in an arsenal. A single spark will set off an explosion that will consume us all. I cannot tell you when that explosion will occur, but I can tell you where. Some damned foolish thing in the Balkans will set it off. And that's, 35 years more before World War I actually starts, but he can see it coming. But the one that I think is relevant for our proceedings is, this is something he says after the 1848 revolutions. The great issues of the day are not decided through speeches and majority votes. That was the great error of 1848 and 1849, but through blood and iron. Now, if we could say that the Arab Spring, 2011, 12, 13, and certainly finished by now, if that was the age of utopia and the golden youth and the idea that you could reform a country with internet freedom or, Occupy, where the demands were more money for the Securities and Exchange Commission, or campaign finance reform, or Occupy public space, that's really the stupidest one of all. That's the age of blather. That's the age of nonsense, of anarchism, and really criminally wasting great world historic possibilities. We're now in the age of blood and iron. In other words, it comes down to this. Under conditions of a depression, and I think we can call this the lessons of the Arab Spring, if you want to. That's in quotes, Arab Spring. In a world depression, the high levels of unemployment and falling standards of living means that every nation state, and indeed civilization itself, are dangerously vulnerable to attack by the CIA and other imperialist agencies. That's what the Arab Spring was. And the golden youth in the public square were simply props, even though they didn't know it. In Tunisia, it was a military coup organized by the CIA among generals using those golden youth as the props, right? But then the CIA had also contracted with the Muslim Brotherhood to come in and take over. That has also ended, and not as tragic quite yet as Libya or Algeria, but still plenty bad. So the world depression means that the nation state is very vulnerable to CIA attack, and that's what the CIA wants to attack. So that's one of the things you have to face. The question I tried to stress before, if you want to have rule of law, if you want to have a democratic republic, if you want to have representative government, that takes a material basis. As Roosevelt said in the Atlantic Charter, needy people cannot be free people. It actually reads, necessitous men cannot be free men. But today, needy people cannot be free people. That's freedom from want. In much of the world, the choice is between authoritarianism and chaos. So which is better, Gaddafi or Hitler? Gaddafi is better. It's clear. Which is better, Sisi or Morsi, who's going to lead the country into a war with Syria and adventurism without end, and bringing in Qaradawi and these other lunatics from Al Jazeera? Sisi is better than Morsi. And again, any national state is better than no state. In other words, any national state, even some of the worst, are better than the kind of chaos that you see in Libya or someplace like this right now. So I would say that would be the realpolitik, tough-minded view, and that when you have a mass strike situation, you can't regard this as a chance to go on vacation and camp in the park and act out every utopian wish, dream, fancy, chimera you've ever had. No, that is irresponsible. Okay, so that I think is one of the things. You've got to use those opportunities to get certain things done in terms of programmatic education organizations. And once again, this is Webster Tarpley in New York City for the Left Forum. I also wanted to ask you, which is better, a member of the Nusra Brigade who cannibalizes a human heart on television, or Assad, representing what was a sort of middle-class regime, more or less? I think it's clear, right? The choice was between Assad and chaos. So congratulations to Assad He has the upper hand in the war, and he's going to be reelected. And I think that's fine. It's not fine. It's the best that can be gotten. Okay? So I would go with that. History is still alive and well. The end of history was a mirage or a demagogic chimera launched by neocons. The ruling class is nuts in the Anglo-American world because they have built their careers on this. This is their approach, right? They think they're the masters of human destiny. Where they can experience the subjective satisfactions that they're looking for, and some of them want to be duped, right? A lot of people who supported Obama were telling that they knew that they were being duped, and that this is what they. Jessica Matthews' power shift nonsense of the late 90s. And what we need now is the new toughness of mind. In other words, it's simply too late in the game. The stakes are too high to have people who go around, they treat politics as where they can, but there's the majority of the world out there, Russia, China, India, and Brazil, and many more, South Africa, who don't share this lunatic view. So the Fukuyama thesis is a dead duck. The Daniel Bell end of ideology thesis is a dead duck. And, of course, the welcome back to World Crisis Radio here from New York City. I'm about to address the Left Forum on Saturday, the 31st of May. Some of the themes: the end of history is over. History may have been stalled. It really wasn't, but might have seemed that way to some.